My name is Yeon, and I've learned that survival in this world means keeping your head down. As an Omega without a pack, I work 3 jobs just to afford my tiny studio apartment in the older part of Seoul. The bakery at dawn, the convenience store in the afternoon, and sometimes evening shifts at a small restaurant when they need extra hands. It's exhausting, but it's mine. My life, my independence, even if society looks down on unmated Omegas like me. I never expected everything to change on a rainy Tuesday evening. I was walking home from the convenience store, umbrella barely shielding me from the downpour, when I heard it. A small, broken sound cutting through the rain. Crying. I stopped, my Omega instincts suddenly alert. Following the sound, I found him huddled behind a dumpster in the alley beside my apartment building. The pup. Maybe 4 years old, soaking wet, trembling. My heart shattered instantly. He had the distinct scent of an alpha pup, but it was buried under sadness so profound it made my chest ache. His clothes were expensive but dirty, his little face streaked with tears and grime. When he looked up at me with those enormous dark eyes, something fundamental shifted inside me. "Hey, little one," I whispered, crouching down despite the puddles soaking my knees. "Are you lost?" He didn't answer, just stared at me with a heartbreaking mixture of fear and desperate hope. I noticed the bruises then. Not from abuse, but from a child left to fend for himself. Scraped knees, a bump on his forehead. Evidence of a pup without anyone watching over him. "Where's your family?" I asked gently. His tiny voice broke me. "Papa doesn't want me. I'm bad." Absolutely not. I felt a surge of protective fury so intense it shocked me. What kind of alpha abandons their own pup? I extended my hand, letting him catch my scent, vanilla and warmth, the calming scent of an Omega. "You're not bad, sweetheart. You're perfect. Can I take you somewhere dry?" He hesitated, then placed his small, cold hand in mine. That simple gesture of trust undid me completely. I brought him to my apartment, wrapped him in my only warm blanket, and made him hot chocolate with the expensive cocoa I saved for bad days. He sat on my second-hand couch, looking so small and lost. As I dried his hair with a towel, he finally spoke. "I'm Haneul." "That's a beautiful name. It means sky, doesn't it?" He nodded, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. "Mama named me. But Mama's gone now. And Papa looks at me like it hurts." My hand stilled. A widowed alpha, perhaps. But that didn't excuse abandonment. Nothing did. Over the following weeks, I discovered the truth in pieces. Haneul lived in the luxury apartment building 3 blocks away. His father, Kang Dohyun, was a powerful alpha, a CEO whose face occasionally appeared in business news. After Haneul's Omega parent died in childbirth, Dohyun had essentially shut down. He provided money, hired help, but gave no love. The nannies came and went, unable to handle a grieving alpha's coldness and a pup desperate for affection. Haneul started appearing at my door regularly. At first, I tried finding his address, returning him properly. But the doorman would just send him up to an empty penthouse. The housekeeper would thank me distractedly and close the door. I never saw his father. So Haneul kept coming back to me and I stopped fighting it. 3 months passed like a dream I was terrified to wake from. Then came the day everything shattered. I was picking Haneul up from the small playground near my building when I felt it. The overwhelming presence of a dominant alpha. The air itself seemed to thicken with power and barely contained fury. I turned and saw him for the first time in person. Kang Dohyun was devastatingly handsome and absolutely terrifying. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than my yearly rent. But his eyes, cold, dark, empty, fixed on me with an intensity that made my Omega instincts scream danger. "Step away from my son." His voice cut through the air like a blade. "Now." Haneul's hand tightened in mine, his little body pressing against my leg. I smelled his fear, sharp and acidic, and it made my protective instincts roar to life. "Haneul, do you want to go with him?" I asked softly, looking down at the pup. "No. Please, Yeon, don't make me." "How dare you?" Dohyun's scent spiked dangerously, flooding the playground with alpha dominance. My knees wobbled, but I forced myself to stay upright. You're manipulating a child. Turning him against his own father. Manipulating. I laughed bitterly, anger burning through my fear. I'm not the one who's been absent for 3 months. Where were you when he had nightmares? When he was hungry? When he needed someone, anyone, to tell him he mattered? The alpha's jaw clenched. You know nothing about my situation. I know your son was eating from convenience store trash cans when I found him. My voice rose, trembling with fury. I know he was sleeping in alleyways because going home to an empty apartment was too lonely. What kind of father? Don't you dare judge me, Omega. He took a threatening step forward. You have no idea what I've lost. What it's like to look at him and see. See what? Your dead mate. The words came out harsh, cruel, but I was past caring. That's not Haneul's fault. He lost a parent too, but he also lost you. At least he had the decency to keep living. Dohyun's control snapped. His alpha presence crashed over me like a tidal wave, forcing me to my knees. Haneul screamed, crying now, but the alpha's eyes stayed locked on mine. You forget your place, Omega. He's my blood. My son. You're nobody. I'm the person he loves. I shouted up at him, tears streaming down my face but refusing to look away. I'm the person he comes to when he's scared. I'm the person who knows he likes his toast cut into triangles and that he's afraid of thunder and that his favorite color is blue because it reminds him of his mama's eyes. Something cracked in Dohyun's expression. His alpha presence wavered. You know all that? Of course I do. Because I pay attention. Because I care. I struggled to my feet, pulling Haneul behind me protectively. What's his favorite food? When's his birthday? What does he want to be when he grows up? Silence. Devastating, damning silence. That's what I thought, I whispered. So don't you dare come here after months of neglect and act like you have any right to him. He's my son. Dohyun roared, and for the first time, I heard pain beneath the anger. Raw, agonizing pain. He's all I have left of, his voice broke. He's mine. Then act like it, I said quietly. Because right now, you're just a stranger who shares his DNA. We stood there, locked in a silent battle of wills. Other parents had cleared the playground, ushering their children away from the confrontation. It was just us, the Alpha and Omega, with a terrified pup caught between. Dohyun's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening back into that cold mask. This isn't over, he said, his voice deadly calm now. I'm his legal guardian. I could have you arrested for kidnapping. Then do it, I challenged, knowing I was being reckless but unable to stop. Explain to the police why your son was living on the streets. Explain why every neighbor in your building knows you ignore him. See how that looks for your precious company. His eyes flashed dangerously. You're threatening me? I'm protecting him. There's a difference. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. Then Dohyun did something unexpected. He looked down at Haneul, really looked at him, and I saw his hands tremble slightly. Haneul, he said, his voice awkward, unsure. Come here. The pup pressed harder against my leg. I want to stay with Yeon. The pain that flashed across Dohyun's face was almost enough to make me feel sorry for him. Almost. We'll talk about this properly, the Alpha said finally, pulling out a business card and practically throwing it at me. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. My office. Be there, or I'll have my lawyers make your life very difficult. He turned and walked away, his back rigid, his scent a chaotic mess of grief and rage and something that might have been shame. I looked down at the card in my shaking hand, then at Haneul's tearful face. It's okay, sweetheart, I whispered, picking him up even though my arms trembled. I won't let anyone hurt you. But as I carried him home, I couldn't shake the image of Dohyun's expression when his own son had chosen me over him. It wasn't triumph I'd seen there. It was devastation. I stood outside the gleaming glass tower of Kang Corporation, feeling utterly out of place in my best clothes, a button-down shirt I'd ironed 3 times and slacks I'd bought secondhand. The building pierced the sky like a shard of ice, cold and intimidating, just like its owner. Mrs. Song had agreed to watch Haneul, though the pup had clung to me crying. "Don't let Papa take you away," he'd sobbed, and I'd promised him something I had no power to guarantee. The elevator ride to the top floor felt like ascending to my execution. Dohyun's secretary, a severe beta woman, led me to his office without a word. The space was enormous, all dark wood and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul. And there he was, standing with his back to me, hands in his pockets, radiating that suffocating alpha presence. "Sit," he commanded without turning. "I'd rather stand." He turned then, his eyes narrowing. "I wasn't asking, Omega." The dominance in his voice made my knees weak, but I forced myself to remain upright. "My name is Yeon. Use it or I'm leaving." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe. He gestured sharply to a chair. This time I sat, but only because my legs were shaking. Dohyun moved to his desk, pulling out a folder. "I've had you investigated." My stomach dropped. "You what?" "3 jobs. No family. No pack affiliation." He read from the document like he was listing my crimes. "Lived alone for 4 years. No criminal record, but also no references, no connections, nothing that makes you qualified to care for my son." "Except that I actually do care for him," I shot back. "Which is more than you can say." His jaw clenched. "You've been filling his head with poison against me. I've never said a single negative word about you to Haneul." I stood up, anger overwhelming caution. "He formed his own opinions based on your actions. Or lack thereof. Watch your tone." "Or what? You'll use your alpha voice on me again? Throw your weight around?" I was trembling now, with fury and fear combined. "That's all you know how to do, isn't it? Dominate. Control. But you can't control grief, so you just shut down. You know nothing about my grief." He slammed his hands on the desk, and I flinched despite myself. "You didn't watch your mate die. You didn't hold their hand as they begged you to save them, and you couldn't. You didn't." His voice cracked, and suddenly I saw it. The fracture in his armor. "You're right," I said quietly. "I don't know what that's like. But Haneul does. He lost a parent too. And then he lost you." Dohyun turned away, his shoulders rigid. For a long moment, silence filled the office. When he spoke again, his voice was rough, barely controlled. "Every time I look at him, I see Taejin. Same eyes. Same smile. Same." He stopped, his hand gripping the window frame so hard his knuckles went white. "I can't breathe when I look at him. It hurts too much." My anger dissolved into something more complex. "So your solution is to make him feel that pain too? To abandon him?" "I didn't abandon him. He has everything he needs. Food, shelter, education. Everything except love." My voice rose again. "He's 4 years old and he thinks he's the reason you're miserable. He thinks he killed his mother by being born, and you've done nothing to tell him otherwise." Dohyun spun around, and I saw tears in his eyes. Actual tears. Because some days I wonder if he's right. The admission hung between us like a confession of murder. I stared at this powerful alpha, this man who commanded boardrooms and dominated every space he entered, and saw someone completely broken. "That's the grief talking," I said softly. "Not the truth. Taejin wanted him, didn't they? They chose to have him." He nodded, unable to speak. "Then honor that choice. Honor them by loving their son." "I don't know how anymore," he whispered. "I don't know how to be anything but empty." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his entire demeanor changed, hardening back into that cold mask. "My mother," he said curtly. "She's been demanding to meet you. The Omega who's stolen her grandson's affection." I didn't steal anything. He gave it freely because no one else wanted it. "She'll be here in 10 minutes. Fair warning, she makes me look warm and fuzzy." I barely had time to process that before the office door burst open. A tall, elegant woman in a designer's suit swept in, her alpha presence nearly as overwhelming as her son's. This was Kang Dohyun, and I recognized her from magazine covers. A corporate legend in her own right. "So you're the Omega." Her eyes raked over me with obvious distaste. "How much do you want?" Excuse me? Don't play coy. How much money to disappear from my grandson's life? Name your price. The sheer audacity stunned me speechless. Mother, Dohyun said warningly. Stay out of this, Dohyun. You've already made enough mistakes. She turned back to me, pulling out a checkbook. 1 million won? 5 million? I can have it transferred today. I don't want your money, I said, finding my voice. I want Haneul to be happy. He'll be happy with proper caregivers. Professional nannies from good families. Not some. She waved her hand dismissively, street Omega with no prospects. Something snapped inside me. Those proper caregivers quit after 2 weeks because your son treats them like furniture. Haneul was starving and alone because no amount of money could replace what he actually needed, someone to love him. How dare you raise your voice to me? No, how dare you? I was beyond caring about hierarchy now. You're his grandmother. Where were you when he was crying himself to sleep? When he was so desperate for affection he'd follow a stranger home? Mayan's face flushed with rage. She turned to Dohyun. Control your Omega or I will. He's not my Omega, Dohyun said quietly, but something in his tone made us both look at him. And he's right. You weren't there either, Mother. None of us were. Taejin's death broke this family. Taejin's death revealed what we already were. Dohyun's voice rose. Incapable of putting anyone before our pride and our pain. And Haneul paid the price. His mother looked genuinely shocked. I'd clearly witnessed something rare, Dohyun standing up to her. I'm proposing a trial, Dohyun said, looking at me. 3 months. You continue caring for Haneul, but I want to be involved. To try. Try what exactly? I asked cautiously. To be his father. To learn how to look at him without falling apart. His voice dropped. Teach me what you know. Help me reconnect with him. This is absurd. Mayan interjected, letting some random Omega dictate. It's not your decision, Dohyun cut her off firmly. Then to me, well, will you help me? I studied his face, looking for manipulation or hidden motives. But all I saw was desperation and a fragile, terrifying hope. If you hurt him again, if you make him feel unwanted even once, I'm done. I don't care about your lawyers or your threats. Understood? He nodded. Understood. And this stays about Haneul. Not your mother's pride, not your company's reputation. Just him. Agreed. I took a shaky breath. Then okay, we try. Mayan made a disgusted sound and stormed out. The office suddenly felt less suffocating without her presence. Dohyun moved closer, and I caught his scent, pine and rain, but underneath, that same grief that had haunted Haneul. Thank you, he said quietly, for not giving up on him when I did. Thank me when you've earned his trust back. I headed for the door, then paused. Tomorrow, come to my apartment at 5. I'll make dinner. We'll start small. What should I bring? I looked back at him, this powerful alpha who suddenly seemed lost as his own son. Just yourself. And maybe some patience. This won't be easy. Nothing worth having ever is, he replied. As I left his office, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just agreed to something that would change all of our lives. Whether for better or worse, only time would tell. The knock came at exactly 5 p.m. Dohyun stood in my doorway holding a bag from an expensive grocery store, looking completely out of place in his pressed slacks and rolled-up dress shirt. Behind me, Haneul had gone completely silent, his little hand clutching the back of my shirt. Papa! His voice was so small, so uncertain, it broke my heart. Hello, Haneul. Dohyun's voice was stiff, formal, like he was greeting a business associate. He cleared his throat. I brought ingredients. Yeon said we'd make dinner together. I stepped aside, letting him in. My tiny apartment suddenly felt microscopic with his presence filling it. Haneul hadn't moved, still hiding behind me. Haneul, why don't you show your father the drawing you made today? I suggested gently. The pup shook his head violently, pressing his face against my leg. Dohyun's expression flickered with pain before settling back into that neutral mask. It's okay, the alpha said quietly. We don't have to rush this. For the next hour, we made kimchi jjigae in the world's most awkward silence. Dohyun followed my instructions precisely, cutting vegetables with surprising skill. Haneul sat at the small table, watching his father like he might disappear at any moment. You're good with a knife, I observed. Taejin taught me, he said without thinking, then froze. His hand trembled slightly. They loved cooking. It was the first time he'd spoken their name without completely shutting down. I saw Haneul's ears perk up. Mama cooked, the pup asked softly. Dohyun turned, and for a moment, I thought he might bolt. But he took a breath and nodded. Your mama made the best tteokbokki in Seoul. They'd make it spicy enough to make me cry. A tiny smile touched Haneul's lips. Really? Really? They'd laugh at me and call me a weak alpha. Dohyun's voice was thick with emotion, but he kept talking. You have their laugh, you know. Exactly the same. Something shifted in the room. Haneul slid off his chair and took a tentative step toward his father. Then another. What else did Mama do? Dohyun knelt down slowly, making himself smaller, less intimidating. They sang. Terribly. But they sang all the time, especially when they were happy about you growing inside them. They wanted me? The question devastated us both. Dohyun's eyes filled with tears. More than anything in this world. They talked to you every single day. Told you stories, played you music. You were so loved before you even took your first breath. Haneul threw himself at his father, sobbing. Dohyun caught him, his whole body shaking as he held his son for the first time in months. I turned away, giving them privacy, tears streaming down my own face as I stirred the stew. That dinner was messy and emotional and perfect. Over the following weeks, Dohyun came every evening. Sometimes we cooked, sometimes we played games, sometimes we just existed together. I watched him slowly learn his son, how Haneul chewed his bottom lip when concentrating, how he needed his food separated on the plate, how he still slept with the tiny blanket Taejin had made him. But I also noticed other things. The way Dohyun's eyes followed me around the kitchen. How his scent would spike when I laughed. The careful distance he maintained, like he was afraid to get too close. One evening, after Haneul fell asleep on the couch between us, Dohyun spoke quietly. I've been thinking about custody arrangements. Official ones. My stomach dropped. You want to take him back? I want to do this properly. Legally. He looked at me, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. I want you to be his legal guardian. Jointly. With me. I stared at him. What? You're right that I failed him. But you've been his parent when I couldn't be. That shouldn't just disappear because I'm finally getting my act together. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. My lawyers think I'm insane. My mother nearly disowned me when I suggested it. But I don't care. Haneul needs you. This isn't about what I need? I asked, my heart pounding. His eyes darkened. What you need is complicated. Try me. I need. He stopped, shook his head. This isn't appropriate. Dohyun. I said his name carefully. What are you not saying? He stood abruptly, pacing my small living room like a caged animal. His scent was wild, chaotic. You're an unmated Omega living alone. In a tiny apartment. Working yourself to exhaustion. It's not, you deserve better. You deserve safety and comfort and what? An alpha? I stood too, anger flaring. Is this about you feeling guilty? Wanting to pay me off with a nicer life? No. He turned on me, and suddenly we were inches apart. This is about the fact that I can't stop thinking about you. That your scent drives me crazy. That watching you with my son makes me want things I have no right to want. The confession hung between us, electric and dangerous. What things? I whispered. Everything. His voice was raw. I want you in my home. I want to wake up to you making breakfast and fall asleep knowing you're safe. I want. He stopped himself, stepping back. But I can't. Taejin's only been gone 18 months. And you're not some replacement or prize. You deserve better than a broken alpha who can't even. I kissed him. It was stupid and impulsive and I didn't care. His lips were warm and he tasted like the coffee we'd shared. For one perfect second, he kissed me back, his hand coming up to cup my face with devastating gentleness. Then he wrenched away, breathing hard. No. We can't. I can't do this to you, to Haneul, to Taejin's memory. Taejin would want you to be happy, I said firmly. And Haneul wants a family. A real one. You don't understand the pressure you'd face. My mother, my company, society, an Omega with no background suddenly raising an heir? They'd destroy you. Let them try. Yeon. A small voice cut through our argument. Are you fighting? We both spun to see Haneul sitting up, rubbing his eyes. Please don't fight. Please don't make Yeon leave, Papa. Please. Dohyun was beside his son instantly. No one's leaving. I promise. But you're upset. You both smell upset. Haneul's eyes filled with tears. Is it my fault? Never, I said, kneeling beside them. Your father and I are just figuring things out. Adult things. But they have nothing to do with you, sweetheart. Do you like Papa? Haneul asked me with devastating childish directness. Because I think he likes you. He smells happy when you're here. Dohyun looked mortified. I might have laughed if the situation wasn't so complicated. I do like your Papa, I admitted. Very much. Then why can't we all be together? Like a real family? Haneul looked between us with such hope it physically hurt. Other kids have an alpha and an omega. Why can't I? Dohyun and I exchanged glances. How do you explain grief and guilt and social pressure to a 4-year-old who just wants to be loved? It's not that simple, little Sky, Dohyun said gently. Why not? You love me, Yeon loves me, and you? Haneul looked at his father seriously. You look at Yeon the way you look at Mama's pictures. Like they make the sad go away. Out of the mouths of babes. Dohyun's composure cracked completely. I do, he whispered, looking at me. You do make the sad go away. And that terrifies me because I don't know if I deserve that. If I deserve you. Maybe stop deciding what you deserve and start asking what you want, I said softly. I want you. Both of you. I want to come home to this, to laughter and chaos and burnt dinners and crayon drawings on the walls. I want, his voice broke. I want to be happy again. And I want you to be the reason why. My heart was thundering so hard I could barely breathe. Then stop fighting it. My mother will make your life hell. The board will question my judgment. The media. I don't care about any of that. I reached out, taking his hand. It was shaking. I care about Haneul. And I'm starting to care about you too. The real you. Not the cold CEO, but the man who's learning to love his son again. The man who cries when he talks about his late mate. The man who's brave enough to try. Haneul grabbed both our hands, joining them together. Family, he declared. We're family now. Right. Dohyun looked at our joined hands, then at me, and finally at his son. Something in his expression shifted, like watching ice finally melt after a brutal winter. Right, he agreed, his voice steady for the first time. We're family. The kiss that followed was softer, sweeter, and filled with promise. Haneul cheered, and for the first time in months, I let myself believe in. Moving into Dohyun's penthouse felt like stepping into a different world. Everything was white marble and designer furniture, cold and perfect and utterly lifeless. Haneul clung to my hand as we walked through the enormous space, his eyes wide. It's so big, he whispered. Will we get lost? Dohyun knelt beside him, and I still marveled at how natural the gesture had become. Then we'll find each other. That's what families do. The first week was chaos. Dohyun's mother showed up unannounced 3 times, each visit more hostile than the last. The third time she brought lawyers. This is inappropriate, Mayan announced, standing in the living room like a queen surveying conquered territory. An unmated Omega living with my son? The scandal alone could tank our stock prices. Then I'll mate him, Dohyun said calmly, not looking up from where he was helping Haneul build a block tower. I nearly dropped the tea I was serving. Excuse me? Mayan's face went scarlet. You cannot be serious. Taejin has barely been gone. 18 months. Dohyun finally looked at his mother, and his eyes were cold steel. And I'm tired of living like I died with them. Yeon makes me want to live again. He makes Haneul happy. That's all that matters. What about propriety? Legacy? That Omega has no family, no connections, no. He has me, Dohyun interrupted. And if that's not enough for you, there's the door. I'd never seen Mayan speechless before. She stared at her son like he'd become a stranger, then turned that scorching gaze on me. You've bewitched him. Used your Omega tricks. Enough. Dohyun stood, and his alpha presence flooded the room. Even I felt my knees weaken. You will not disrespect my mate in our home. You can accept this and be part of our lives, or you can leave. Your choice. Haneul had stopped playing, watching his grandmother with those two knowing eyes. Grandma, why are you so mean? Yeon is nice. He makes Papa smile. Something cracked in Mayan's expression. She looked at her grandson, then at her son, and for just a moment, I saw past the Ice Queen exterior to the grieving mother underneath. Teen would have wanted you to be happy, she said quietly, and it sounded like surrender. I miss them too. I know, mother. Dohyun's voice softened. But holding on to grief won't bring them back. We have to live. For Haneul and for ourselves. She left without another word, but something had shifted. A week later, she sent a formal apology note and a ridiculously expensive gift basket. Progress, Dohyun called it. But our real challenge came from an unexpected source. I was picking Haneul up from his new preschool when I noticed another Omega parent staring at me. She approached with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You're Yeon, right? Kang Haneul's, what exactly? Nanny. Parent, I corrected firmly. How modern. Her tone dripped condescension. I heard you were just some street Omega who latched onto a grieving alpha. Must be nice, landing such a wealthy mate. My face burned. Other parents were watching now, whispering behind their hands. Haneul's grip on my hand tightened. Yeon, let's go, he said quietly, and the fear in his voice made my protective instincts surge. Yes, let's. I kept my head high as we walked away, but inside, I was crumbling. That night, I couldn't sleep. Dohyun found me on the penthouse balcony at 2 a.m., staring at the city lights. Talk to me, he said softly, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. Do you ever regret this? Choosing me? The words tumbled out. Your mother's right. I have nothing to offer you. No status, no connections. I'm just the person I love. He turned me to face him, his hands gentle on my shoulders. The person who saved my son when I couldn't. The person who makes me laugh and challenges me and doesn't let me hide in my grief. His voice dropped. You're everything, Yeon. Don't let anyone make you believe otherwise. But what if they're right? What if I'm not enough for? He kissed me, deep and desperate, tasting like coffee and promises. When we broke apart, his eyes were blazing. You are enough. You've always been enough. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows it. The next day, Dohyun did something unprecedented. He called a press conference. I watched from his office as he stood before cameras and reporters, looking every inch the powerful Seo. But when he spoke, his voice was warm, human. I'm here to introduce someone important. Yeon has been caring for my son and healing our family. In 2 weeks, we'll be officially mated. I'm announcing this because I won't have the person I love subjected to rumors and speculation. He deserves better. The questions erupted immediately. Isn't it too soon after your first mate's death? What about your company's image? How can you trust some random Omega with your heir? Dohyun's expression hardened. Taejin would have loved Yeon. They both have the same fierce heart, the same capacity for unconditional love. As for trust, he had my son's trust when I didn't deserve it myself. That tells me everything I need to know. He looked directly at the camera, and I knew he was speaking to me. Yeon taught me how to live again, how to be a father, how to open my heart when I thought it was permanently broken. Loving him doesn't diminish what I had with Taejin. It honors it because Taejin always wanted me to be happy. I was crying by the time he finished, and I wasn't alone. The press conference went viral. By evening, social media was divided, some supporting us, others calling it a scandal. But I didn't care anymore. The mating ceremony was small, intimate. Just us, Haneul, and a few close friends. No Mayan, though she'd sent a stiff but genuine congratulations card. Baby steps. As Dohyun's teeth pierced my neck, claiming me as his mate, I felt everything click into place. The bond snapped between us, golden and warm and absolutely right. Through it, I felt his love, his gratitude, his fierce protectiveness. And underneath it all, a deep, abiding peace. Haneul was the first to hug us afterward, his little face glowing with joy. Now we're really family. Forever and ever. Forever and ever, Dohyun agreed, pulling us both close. That night, after Haneul was asleep, we stood in what had become our bedroom, no longer cold and empty, but filled with life. Photos of Taejin still had a place of honor on the dresser, because they were part of our story too. Do you think they'd approve? I asked, touching the frame gently. I know they would. Dohyun wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. Taejin always said love multiplies, it doesn't divide. That there's no limit to how much a heart can hold. Smart person. The smartest. They chose me after all. He paused. And I think they'd be glad I chose you. 6 months later, I stood in Haneul's new bedroom, painted blue like his mama's eyes, filled with toys and books and drawings covering every wall. He was showing me his latest masterpiece, our family, holding hands under a rainbow. That's you, that's Papa, that's me, he explained, pointing. And that's Mama watching from the sky, making sure we're happy. My throat tightened. It's perfect, little sky. Are you happy, Yeon? Really happy? I thought about my old studio apartment, my 3 jobs, my lonely life. Then I looked at the ring on my finger, heard Dohyun's laugh from the kitchen where he was attempting dinner, felt the mate bond humming contentedly in my chest. Really happy, I confirmed. Good. Haneul hugged me tight. Because you gave me a family. Now I get to keep you forever. Forever and ever, I promised, holding him close. Later, as we sat down to Dohyun's slightly burnt bulgogi, Haneul raised his juice box in a toast. To family. To family, Dohyun and I echoed, our eyes meeting across the table. The alpha who'd rejected his own pup had learned to love. The abandoned child had found his home. And I, the nobody Omega with nothing to offer, had somehow become the center of their universe. Sometimes the best families aren't born. They're chosen, built piece by piece from broken hearts and second chances and love fierce enough to heal anything. We were proof of that. Our story wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And that made it beautiful.